Okay, welcome everybody. My name's Andrew. Some of you have met me before. This is my little venue here, which we opened about 12 months ago. I don't know, I should have put this on my head. I can't reach that thing around. I know this looks a bit pretentious, but we need vlogging for the video. So basically, Medley is it's a venue that I do a whole host of different things in. For the last 5 years I've been doing cookery classes, and I started off doing them in a place called Houseworks on Upper Ern Street, just off Pier Street. And we would maybe do cookery classes for 12 to 15 people, and then they got bigger and bigger and more popular, and then I started moving to other venues, and I started having to pay a fortune for venue hire. To the extent that we were then having, on average, 80 guests a night, and I was having to rent the Radisson Hotel with a grand a pop, plus all the other costs for sound and AV and staff and everything else. So I decided to look for my own venue. So I didn't want to take a plunge because I just assumed that taking on a commercial premises in Dublin city centre would cost an absolute arm and a leg. But with the recession, with a lot of buildings that have been vacant, I managed to find this after looking at maybe 30 or 40 different properties around town. So it was ideal. So basically what we do here is we do a lot of my cookery classes, and it's evolved from doing cookery classes to doing all the private parties, private functions, events like this, breakfast meetings, and do a lot of work with the likes of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, where we'd have directors' dinners, and because it's so private, you're not going to share the space with anybody else. So that basically is the kind of nature of what I do. It's one element of my business because I also do a lot of kind of food consultancy, do a little bit of media stuff, and what I want to talk to you this morning about is, let's see if we can get this going, how food tastes have evolved, and particularly in Ireland. I'm going to keep it as brief as I possibly can. After I've spoken about this, I'm just going to give you a little more background to Medley and how Medley evolved. I'll try not to spend any more than about 20 minutes doing it. So here's our little breakfast meeting this morning. A little picture that I downloaded from Shutterstock, and Shutterstock is brilliant. So here we go. A little bit background of me. Grew up in a pig farm in County Offaly, influenced by a very creative mother who was an excellent cook. We had an acre of garden, and I don't know whether many of you can recall, some of you are probably as old as I am, but in the 1970s, particularly the mid to late 70s, every single summer it was really, really hot compared to what we have now. And we used, as there are 9 kids in the family, and we used to have to spend about 4 hours every evening watering plants and garden and vegetables. We were completely self-sufficient as a family. And I suppose that's where my love of food evolved and developed. And when I left school, I went to the UK and I studied agricultural marketing. You couldn't do that in Ireland. You could either do ag science in UCD or you could do business studies. So I combined the two. And I worked, and I then worked in the UK for Larry Goodman. When I was a student, I worked in Edinburgh, and that was my industrial placement year in 1993, I think. And I think we were being paid £6.5 grand per year back then, which was still really, really bad money. And on a Saturday, I used to go into the abattoir, and my Saturday job was on the killing line. So I used to kill for a living, and I was actually in the blood lab, if you believe it, at the throats. So again, sorry, it was an vegetarian. So that's what I used to do on my Saturdays, which was a little bit sort of grungy, but a bit of fun. I came back to Ireland in 1998, and I joined the family business, which is roast bacon, which my parents started in 1984. And then in 2004 I started my own food import and distribution business, importing olive oil and things like cheese from Malta, honey from Malta, and I supplied about 400 shops around Ireland. I kind of got bored of it pretty quickly because retail is a very, very difficult market to deal with. A lot of retailers, particularly the smaller retailers, I find, are very, very difficult to deal with. It's actually easier to deal with the bigger supermarkets. You have a sort of that mentality of businessmen who have small retail outlets who would be regarded in very high esteem in small towns, and that then transcends down into suppliers, and they treat you like dirt. And I think being treated like dirt, you kind of think to yourself, well, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So that then evolved into doing more media stuff, and then I started doing cookery demonstrations, weddings, catering, and then I started this business I suppose about 4 years ago, mainly doing outside catering, and then when I found this, which was this time last year, I set it up. Here's a little family. Did anybody pick who I am there? That was about 1976, I think, and that was only half the case before the rest were born. Any guesses? Far left, yeah. It's funny, the guy in the middle is a guy called Kieran, who's a very good family friend, lives out in Australia, and he posted this on Facebook last week, and I said, Kieran, it looks like you're going to do very, very naughty things to us. That smile on your face. And he agreed. So that's a bit of a fun photograph. So anyway, coming back to food and how food patterns have evolved over the years. In prehistoric times, it was all about sort of hunting and gathering. And the earliest humans probably lived primarily on scavenging. It's interesting how that's changed hugely, because this was all about survival. Even though these days it's important that we survive, but we have a lot more choice these days. Not only in terms of what we're offered, but also in terms of we can make the choices and we have the choices. In back, and this is going back, millions and millions of years ago, it would have been collecting seafood, eggs, nuts and fruits besides scavenging. Rather than killing large animals themselves for meat, they used the carcasses of large animals and killed by predators to actually feed from that as well. So again, it was all about diet. They didn't have a very long life expectancy because they didn't have the nutrients and the minerals and the vitamins that were required. It comes back to actually how lucky we are to have the choices that we have. Well, that was another little interesting download from Shutterstock last night, quite advanced through the years. Again, there's been a lot of advances in agriculture and trade. We're not always reliant on seasonal produce. Even going back 10, 15 years ago, we would have been very, very reliant on seasonal produce. You can basically buy any vegetable, any fruit all year round these days, which again develops our own reliance on food, but also in terms of our own choices. There's a diversification of culture in Ireland, even going back. I remember when I was in school and one of our teachers went away to Africa to teach for 4 or 5 years, actually it was probably about 3 years, and he came back when I was in about 5th or 6th year, and he had a black wife. I'd never seen a black person in my life before. And it was just extraordinary to see this cultural change in Ireland, from having had no exposure to any other race other than the race that we were familiar with, to all of a sudden having a teacher with a black wife and you have 2 black children. And again, this really does highlight the diversity that we have, not only in our culture, but also in terms of the food that we actually eat. And travel, of course, we all travel extensively, and our palates change as a result of traveling. Communal integration, again, it comes back to, I have a lot of, friends from all sorts of different diversities of life, different cultures. We all eat together, we all party together, socialise together, and I think food is a very, very good communal point that a lot of us meet at. Again, there's a lot more availability of diverse foods. If you go walk around anywhere in Dublin, you've got so many different ethnic shops. I mean, here in particular is just extraordinary. We've got an Asian market here, and then we've got a Brazilian shop on Camden Street. And then we've got Brazilian restaurants, Asian restaurants, Lithuanian restaurants, Portuguese restaurants. It's incredible. And of course, we all eat out a lot. There's a greater variety of food, and consequently, we have a lot more choice when it comes to the nutritional intake and what our body needs. We don't always eat what we should eat. I, as a cook, tend to produce food which is, high in nutritional value. But I don't necessarily follow that course myself, because when you're cooking professionally or commercially, you're tasting as you go along. So I mean, when this finishes now, we've got a group of 65 people coming in for dinner tonight, so we're only cooking all day. I probably won't even have lunch. So again, when you work in food, it's a little different. But I think, again, we have a lot more choice and we can be a lot more kind of healthy. Again, globalization helps, and globalization does enhance and promote the kind of foods that we eat. International trade in food. Again, a lot of us travel. A lot of us have exposure to TV, not only in terms of the food shows that we watch, but also any dramas, lifestyle shows, and from all around the world. And again, our curiosity gets the better of us as well. You know, we see something that we like, we try it. So again, international food and trade has helped. Luxury of planning. These days we can plan our intake, we can plan our food, we can provide all the nutritional requirements. We can budget in terms of, you know, I know these days particularly we have a much more limited budget in terms of, you know, household bills. It's a lot more difficult to survive in this day and age. And it's incredible how much you can get by on, or how little you can get by on with food. I did a report for TV3 about a year ago looking at a family of 5 over 5 days and how much you could actually spend. And it came out at about €50. So I spent €50 for, and this was evening meals. It was an evening meal over 5 days for a family of 5. And it's incredible how you can do it. You can use your store-covered ingredients. But the easiest thing to do is, rather than carrying a lot of research, is just go to your nearest supermarket and say, right, what's on offer? Pork loin is like half price. Right, I get a pork loin. What else is on offer? Mince. Mince is on offer. It's like, you know, it's a very old buy one get one free. You can do 2 meals from 500 grams of mince. You can make meatballs, you can do a spaghetti bolognese, you can do a chili. So it's incredible how you can actually work on a budget. Choice, education, travel. We can promote healthy diets, better diets and well-being, better nutritional values, enhanced physical condition. Again, healthy body, healthy mind. You know, I don't know how many of you here go to the gym. Any of you go to the gym here? Hands up. And how many of you have a really, really healthy diet? Because 75% of the fitness regime is down to diet, not the gym. 75% is down to your diet. And we can spend a fortune, not only in terms of our own personal time, but also in terms of our financial commitment to go to the gym. But unless you have a diet, you're not going to do anything for yourself. Again, we can, with a look, you know, a healthy diet, you know, healthy body, healthy mind, we can motivate ourselves. So I think certainly, if you feel good about yourself, you know, you're gonna, if you eat well, you're gonna feel good about yourself. You're gonna be more productive at work. So I think again, this is another factor that's, you know, that's inhibited or that's helped us evolve over the years. Through other consideration, cost, calories, diets, fat content, allergies, all of these issues and considerations we wouldn't have even thought about 20, 25 years ago. And again, you know, it's moved on considerably in terms of our choices and decisions that we make when it comes to food. Balancing diet, the dietary code and the healthy lifestyle. There's a lot more research out there. Admittedly, a lot of research, you have to be quite skeptical about it because all this research has been published time and time again saying that, you know, certain vegetables are bad for you, certain fats are bad for you, and fats are good for you as long as they're in moderation. We have a lot more knowledge. There are a lot more, there are new methods of cooking. Plan the right diet, you've got organic, you've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. You know, so it's important, you know, to look at actually a sort of balanced diet, you know, your dairies, your meats, your vegetables, your fruits. More consideration affecting food and the state of mind. Again, we mentioned that, you know, it's important, you know, to look at mood, food, cleansing your body. When I moved to Dublin in 2004, 2005, I was 18.5 stone. Now I'm tall, so I can carry it. And I just, you know, felt really bad about myself. And I was carrying that weight for quite a long time. You know, my body weight, when I was 17, 18, I think it was about, I don't know, it was like 13, 14 stone. So I'm actually quite a light frame. And then when I went to college and played rugby and drank, and, you know, before we played a game of rugby, we drink 3 pints, because that kind of culture. I literally piled the weight on. When I moved to Dublin, I just thought, I'm not feeling good about myself at all. So I went on a fat-burning diet. And literally, which was getting up in the morning, having a cup of hot water with lemon juice, that kind of gets the bowels going, go for a long walk at a fast pace, come back and a bowl of fruit, fresh fruit with some yogurt. And I was very, very disciplined. I cut out drink for about 2 months. I had cabbage soup for my lunch every single day for a month. I would then have very low-fat food in the evening. I wouldn't have any carbohydrates after 6 o'clock. Very, very disciplined. And I've shed the weight, and I'm now down to about 13.5 stone and hasn't fluctuated above or below 13.5 stone. And that's because I have a relatively balanced diet. I don't pig out in food. I can actually eat anything I want now, even though my diet's not great, but what I do eat is actually reasonably good. We have freedom of choice, which is important, so we're all winners in that situation. Technology is changing what we eat to a large degree. The first moon landing in space pouch food, if you consider that. Technology, we have a world of opinions. There are also side effects in technology. Changes in psychological reflect how we choose to shop and cook and what we want to eat. And now for some examples of how technology has shaped our food preferences. I'm going to get my technology page here. It's actually quite interesting. We get bored more easily. The bar is higher when it comes to stimulation. The world seems smaller. Foreign isn't foreign anymore. We're more open to trying new things with every new version of our computer or cell phone. It's crystallized the belief that now is better. So again, we're exposed to far more when it comes to technology, and that has had a huge impact on what we eat and how we eat. We're also more self-reliant and resourceful when it comes to finding information. Again, things like preparing food is one of the most fundamental activities of humanity. It's only natural that we will see changes in our psychology reflected with how we shop and cook, and a lot more of us are actually shopping online. And if you're shopping online with Tesco or Super and wherever it might be, they're storing that data. That data is then being used to influence your buying trends, because special offers will be promoted. And this is the one, I suppose, the one good thing about capturing this information is that even though supermarkets are very commercial and they're trying to sell as much as they possibly can, but they're also trying to balance what people eat and what people's trends are to a healthy lifestyle and a healthy diet. And generally speaking, you'll find that buying healthy food and buying nutritionally, food which has nutritional values does cost a lot more, so it's in their interest to do it. So again, it's interesting how that technology has come on. Research with spices is quite interesting actually. There's a company in the US that looked at, they're called McCormick's, and they looked at how spices can help. The likes of turmeric, for example, has brain-saving elements. Oregano and pepper, antioxidant capabilities. There are benefits of innovation, multitasking capabilities. So it's interesting, the use of spice and how that spice can help. Craving more intensity and stimulation from food. Advertising campaigns, how we made the right choices, complicated decisions. Visual and symbolic communications is far more relevant than verbal, which is actually quite interesting because people tend to, you look at magazines, you look at television, and that does stimulate the mind. And I was watching a TV show recently about how people are influenced by what they see on television, what they see in advertising campaigns, and it does have a huge impact on our mental state. Brand associations, sponsorship has a huge impact, perception of food. So again, the brain is a very powerful catalyst when it comes to actually eating and what we do and how we do it. Innovation cycles of constant change, online resources, TV and food, again, huge considerations. We have resourceful and self-reliant consumers, we have blogs, we have tweets, we have Facebook, online promotions, and this is a lot of what you guys do as well, which is quite interesting. I want to show you a quick clip here, and I just want to get feedback, and it's not a clip, it's a clip that I put together, which is for we put a proposal, a pitch in for a TV show, looking at food, and I think, if you want to click on that, looking at food, and again, it's an international theme, and I'd like to get your feedback on it just to see whether or not you think it's something that would work. So I'll maybe give that a go, and we'll see how it is.
We've come to Bordeaux on the hunt for the best food and wine in France. But we don't just want to eat good food, we want to learn how to make it. So with that in mind, we're visiting the home of a real French chef, Lucie Skipwith. Lucie and her husband Charles run Le Croix guest house in the heart of Bordeaux's countryside, and have been known to take tourists in and teach them the tricks of French cooking.
We're in the heart of Bordeaux, and what we'd like to do is produce some really typical traditional meals or a menu from the area. What would you suggest?
Well, first of all, what comes to mind is the oyster from Arcachon, and then the duck and the poultry and the chicken from the land area, and all the vegetables which are coming up this spring. Which you got the radishes, you got the Swiss chard, you got the asparagus, you got all the young lettuces like mush.
So we might head off to the market now. So could you put a list together for us?
Yeah. Like so many European cities, food markets are the only place for fresh produce in Bordeaux. You'll find everything here.
Yeah, that basically is kind of a show reel for a show that we want to do. We have a concept to go to Melbourne in Australia, because Melbourne has a huge foodie culture, a huge foodie scene. And about 4 years ago I put a pitch in, and Bill Granger, who's an Australian chef, had agreed to do it with me. Not that we'd ever met each other, but I met his agent in London. But at the time Kevin Rudd was the Prime Minister for Australia, and because my name is Rudd, I thought, well, I might as well kind of see whether I can get a meeting with the Prime Minister. So they'd agreed. So it was Chef Rudd meets Prime Minister Rudd. Now he's back in power, which means that we might try it again. So that could be an interesting one in Melbourne, Australia. So just to finish up, that the future is Medley, and it's what we do here. Again, it's diversity of culture, it's diversity of food. We do, like tonight, for example, we're doing fusion cuisine, and then other nights we do French, we do Italian, we do Asian, and that's pretty much it. So again, thank you very much for coming along. I hope it didn't bore you too much. Just a little bit about Medley here. Medley, we do a lot of private parties. Anybody wants to do kind of Christmas parties, staff nights out, it's kind of it's also a good night out for. We're doing a hen night next Saturday. We're doing a 40th birthday tomorrow. So in the meantime, I've left little flyers all around the place, and thank you very much, and pass you back over to Brian.